My name's Ingram Walters, buy here, pay here business for 25 years. This is Tom Hudson, buy here, pay here legal specialist for 80 years, 75. Anyhow, Tom and I have a good time together, and because he's an attorney, I always have a good attorney joke that I like to tell. So, two attorneys in my hometown, and I mean, these guys were bad actors, okay? These guys were brothers, and they were both in their 80s. But, I mean, these guys had done everything wrong you can do as an attorney. I mean, they had hooked and crooked and done everything that you're not supposed to do. Just bad actors, even though that they were attorneys. Well, one of them died. One of the brothers died, and the other brother went to the priest and said, listen, my brother's dead, and I know we're kind of flim-flammed a lot of people, and we're pretty much, lowlifes. But he said, I want my brother called a saint at his funeral. And the preacher said, there's no way, I'm not going to be able to do it. He said, he just ripped people off his whole life. He was a bad attorney, took advantage of a lot of people. There's no way I'm going to be able to refer to your brother as a saint. The lawyer said, well, you don't understand. He said, I'm considering making a donation to your church. If you'll just do this. I just want him called a saint because we've been called criminals our whole life, and lawyers, even worse. And I'd just like him referred to a saint one time. And he said, listen, I'm willing to make a $100,000 donation to your church if you'll just do this for me. And this guy said, I'm just not going to be able to do it. But let me sleep on it tonight, okay? So he goes home, sleeps on it overnight, starts the funeral the next morning. He's overcome because he's in the house of worship. And he just says, I'm not going to be able to do it. He says, the deceased here was a scoundrel. The deceased here ripped off a bunch of people. The deceased here was an attorney and never did any good for anybody. But compared to his brother, he was a saint. How come everybody laugh at Tom? All right, I got some goals. I said this morning I'm a goal setter. Still got about 1 minute, but I said this morning I'm a goal setter, and my goal today, and I've talked to Tom about this, is I want to give you your money's worth for this entire show, including flights and this high-dollar hotel room, and especially room service, if you've gotten that. And I want to give you your money's worth in this one 45-minute presentation. So that's my goal. So here's what we're going to do. Something that's never been done in the 20-year history that I've been doing this. I'm going to tell you two things that I think you need to do to improve your buy here, pay here business. Tom will tell you two things that you don't need to do. Okay, he's going to tell you two things not to do if you want to stay in business. I'm going to tell you two things to do, and then we'll just go back and forth and back and forth. And I think it'll be a whole lot of fun, too. And I told Tom, I said, Tom, whatever you do, after I say two things and turn it over to you, don't do those last two Ingram just said. Okay, so we've kind of got this gentleman's agreement, but I'm going to tell you some things to do to help your business. And last time Tom and I did this together, there was not a session following it. And we had Q&A for over an hour. Unfortunately, today, there is a session following this. So we will, when we're finished, if you don't think you've got your money's worth, Tom and I will go out in the hallway, and we'll answer your questions until the reception or until they blink the lights and make us go to bed, okay? So remember this about anything that I tell you. It's a little bit different from what Tom tells you. When I tell you something, it's a way to do it, not the way to do it, okay? When I tell you something, it's just a way to be successful and buy here, pay here, not the way to do it, because there's a lot of different ways to do this. I know people that are successful in this business, and they're using $4,000 ACVs and $2,500, and one of them's here on the third row here. And you can be successful at many different levels. I know people that are buying $15,000 trucks, and they're running buy here, pay here operations, with $15,000 ACVs. So there are a lot of ways to skin this cat, but that's something I've always liked about the business. There's not... I got in the new car business now, and there are just so many standards. They tell you got to do this many hours per RO. You got to do that. But buy here, pay here, there's so many different ways to be successful at it. That's one thing I've always liked about it. So I'm going to get into my first two things. Number one, and take some notes, okay? Number one, I think if you want to be successful in buy here, pay here going forward, you got to embrace technology. Embrace technology. Now, what does that mean? It sounds good. I'm as low-tech as anybody there's ever been, okay? I was the black book, go to the auction, flipping through the black book, never bought a car online, okay? I was that guy. Then when I got tired of going to the auction, I had a series of wholesalers, and I would buy from wholesalers. And I said, don't call me. I don't want you to tell me how nice it is. Fax it in to me. I'll circle the ones I want, and I'll fax it back to you. That worked good for years. But I never thought I'd say this. Now I'm buying 75% of my cars online. Never leave the office. I mean, and my guy that's doing it for me, he's got 4 screens, and he may be at 2 or 3 different Manheim auctions at the same time. And so, trust me, I'm bicycling through the jet age. If I can do it, you can do it. Set a goal to try to buy 10% of your inventory online. Anybody in here buying more than 50% online? So it's happening already in buy here, pay here, okay? I mean, I know people that are buying 100%, okay? They don't even, I've got some millennials in Charlotte that I looked at getting in business with, and they do 100 used cars a month, 100 used cars a month in a warehouse down a dead-end road. And I said, well, tell me where you're buying all these cars. What all auctions do you attend? And they looked at me like I was a dinosaur. And they're like, Ingram, we've never been to the auction. I'm like, you're selling 100 used cars a month, and you've never attended an auction. Yeah, we've always bought online, sold online. They don't even know what you're talking about. So embrace technology. You know, I'm bicycling through the jet age, and I should have done it a lot sooner. It was working for me, and y'all know change is hard, but try to embrace technology. We've got to, Brian, because now if you don't embrace technology, that's the only thing we've got. When I started in this business, you know, there were $1,200 ACV cars, right? It's pretty simple. Buy a $1,200 ACV car and get $500 down. That worked, didn't it? Well, guess what? That same car now is $5,800, $6,200. Daryl, I don't know, something in there. I mean, and guess what? They still want to put down $500 and $250. Yeah. So we've let them do that, you know. We've let them, but we've had to because of competition, okay? So if that's the case, that would say buy here, pay here business is not as good as it used to be. I say baloney. I think the best years of buy here, pay here are still in front of us. What do I mean by that? In those days, a General Motors car or a Ford car, 70,000 miles, it was shot, right? It was shot. Now, they'll all go, 180, 190,000 miles before you even think about having any trouble with them. So the technology is a lot better. You got to embrace that technology. You got to use it because the risk is a lot greater than it used to be, okay? That leads me to my second point. Then I'll turn it over to Tom to throw a wet towel on things. My second point is start or interrupt the GPS. Anybody in here, buy here, pay here, and they're not using these products? And I don't care which combination you use. Forever, I like just start or interrupt. I didn't want the GPS. It was expensive way back when. You know, I didn't use GPS. It was just start or interrupt. I avoided using them at all for a long time because I said, I'm just not going to pay the money. I'm not going to pay the money. But then I watched them go from 500 to 400 to 300 to 200 to 100. And I said, maybe we better look into these things. And then I was a start or interrupt only guy. Didn't want to know where the car was. Didn't care. You know, I didn't want the car back. I wanted the money. I wanted to take away their ability to use the car, right? But now they're doing GPS and start or interrupt all in one. Daryl, what are you paying for a GPS start or interrupt? $100? 125? So they've gotten so cheap that I encourage you. There's no reason not to do this. We've got to do it because, right? Remember that spread I talked about? We can't buy the cars at $1,200 and $1,500 anymore. We got to pay $5,000 and $6,000 and $7,000 for it. So it's increased the risk. How do we reduce that risk? You reduce that risk with start or interrupt and GPS devices. And our customers actually like them. You know why they pay the power bill? Anybody know why your customer pays the light bill? I mean, it's like in the top 2. They pay the light bill. Why? Because you're going to cut it off, right? Our customers actually like the discipline that it puts in their lives to start or interrupt devices, okay? Crazy as that sounds. They're my first 2 things. I'm going to turn it over to Tom Hudson from Hudson Cook to tell you 2 things not to do.
Thank you, Ingram. I can tell you, if you've never presented with Ingram, you don't know what you're missing. You never know what he's going to say or when he's going to say it or what's going to happen next. I didn't know what was going on until this morning early, to tell you the truth. Before I put my slides together, quite some time ago. I don't know when Ingram came up with his stuff, but before I put my slides together, I went and visited with my law firm's government investigations practice. We have 8 lawyers in Washington, D.C., and all they do is to defend dealers and finance companies from actions by the government, the Federal Trade Commission, the CFPB, and the state AGs. And I asked them, I said, go over with me the kinds of hot spots. Where are the agencies moving? What are they asserting? What are they claiming that dealers are doing wrong? and using this, what I'm about to show you today isn't just something I dreamed up. I went and got real life examples of things that they have been defending. Another thing I want to say real quickly before I get started, and Sean Peterson's in the back, and he may decide to take issue with me or agree with me, I don't know. But a lot of people thought when Donald Trump was elected and Mick Mulvaney went into the agency as its head that we were going to see a drastic slowdown in regulatory activity. And that was true. That actually happened. But basically what Mick Mulvaney did is to tell his agency, put down your pencils. We're going to stop and we're going to think about what our regulatory mission is. We're not going to do anything for a while except formulate our regulatory mission. After we do that, then we'll crank up again. So that was our regulatory lawyers saw them settle several cases pretty quickly, kind of surprisingly, saw them draw back on allegations they had made in cases we were defending, and all of a sudden they got very easy to settle cases with, much more easy than before. So there was some activity. But then Mulvaney came out and said, from this point on, this agency will not be pushing the envelope, he said. That was the phrase he used. And by pushing the envelope, he meant the agency had been using some not too terribly well accepted legal theories to press liability against finance companies and dealers, coming up with huge fines. So he says, we're not going to push the envelope anymore. But my lawyers tell me now that the enforcement activity is cranking up. Federal Trade Commission's been very active against dealers. State AGs have been very active against dealers. And I think we'll see the Bureau cranking up fairly soon. So you'll see them back. They won't be proceeding with these wild theories that they were using before. But trust me, there's plenty of stuff going on in your shops right now that are basic violations of federal law that they can go after. So with that background, let me tell you what I found. The first area, especially the Federal Trade Commission, has been very active in the advertising area. They've had two major pushes, and they've shut down several dealers. The Federal Trade Commission comes in and makes allegations about usually truth in lending matters and unfair and deceptive acts and practices. If you don't have a review process for your advertising, if you don't know what your federal and state rules are for advertising, it's time to get that under control. You need somebody in your organization who knows the advertising rules and who oversees what you're doing. Don't rely on vendors for your advertising compliance. Vendors can get you into real mischief. Okay. The next thing is pricing your cars. Every one of these sessions I've come to since 1997, there's always somebody in the audience who says, tell me why I can't sell a car for less for cash than I sell it when I'm financing it. I'm here to tell you, you can't. And we've had several enforcement actions against dealers who are selling at one price for cash and a higher price when they finance, and sometimes yet a higher price when they're financing for poor credit customers. That gives the federal agencies and the state agencies a perfect attack that you are, in effect, hiding a finance charge. So don't do that. Ingram, I know you don't do that.
No, not anymore. That's Tom's first two. Now let me put that in real world speak, okay? What you can't do in advertising anymore, and I did this for years and years, is you can't say everyone's approved. Okay? And I know what you're thinking, but everybody is approved. I told them they only had 500 down. If they had 2,000 down, I'd approve them. So everybody is approved. They're just condition approval. I tried all that. Just don't. That's what the regulators are looking for. They're looking for you to go out there and say, no one turned down. Okay? So you can't use that phrase, no one turned down. You can't use the phrase, everybody rides. These phrases that I use forever to get real successful, you can't use those anymore because they don't. So just beware. Specifically, don't say no one turned down. Don't say everyone's approved. Don't say 100% guaranteed approval, because it's just not the case. And somebody's going to shine a light and say, you know, you got this car for 400 down, and you said you'd do them if they had $2,000 down. So you said they're approved. They just need more down payment.
Okay,
so,
okay.
Go ahead.
Quit walking all over my material and get back to your two.
Okay, well, no, that was just a real world of what you can and can't do. I mean, that was advertising what you can and can't do. And as far as cash cars, I just put in a policy not to sell them for cash. I mean, there are car lots all up and down the street. How many are in your hometown, right? If you want a car for cash, go down there. Why, you don't come here. We're selling a program here. We give people dependable, good transportation to get them back and forth to work while we establish or reestablish their credit. If you want a car for cash, go look at all these lots here. So that's the real world application there. All right, my next two things, number one, I guess number three for me, 1, 2, 3, is don't grow too fast. I've seen this happen so many times, especially when somebody gets a new line of credit. You know, they get a new line of credit, and here they're blowing and going. But it's like blowing up a balloon, you know, and I think you can put too much helium in that balloon, and it'll pop. So ego makes you want to do it. Ego can get in the way of cash flow, okay? Just be careful not to grow too fast. You want just slow, steady growth. And it really only happens when you get plenty of money, but that's when you get in trouble because you're blowing and going. So my third thing is don't grow too fast. My fourth thing, this is kind of controversial for some people. I wish if I had do-overs, I would have spent a whole lot less on reconditioning than I spent on reconditioning. I mean, if I had do-overs, it would have been, I had it all figured out, right? I was going to get these cars. We're going to sell a quality car. I mean, we're putting belts and hoses on everything. We're putting wiper blades on everything and brakes. And next thing you know, you get the car back anyway. So if I had do-overs, I'd spend a whole lot less on recondition. Now, what's that number? Darryl, 250? It's just not 900. It's not 1,000 or 1,200. You got to get it way down, in my opinion. Remember, this is A way, not the way. Okay, some people really believe in rebuilding them. But what I would do is I'd put belts and hoses and aim the headlights and all that and put new brakes on it. And then I'd go out to my repossession lot. And I'd look around and say, is that Grand Am that I sold 2 months ago? Yeah. And I'm convinced every one of my customers live down a dirt road. Okay? Every one of my customers live down a dirt road. Because I cannot believe this POS is the car that I sold 2.5, 3 months ago. Well, guess what I remembered about that car? Brand new belts, brand new hoses, brand new brakes, aimed the headlights, adjusted the park brake, whatever, fixed the trunk shocks, okay? We fixed the trunk shock. My mom had a Chrysler, and when she had to get in the trunk, she would open up the trunk and get a broom handle out, and that's how she'd prop the trunk open. And I saw her do that one day, and I said, if my mom can use a broom handle, these customers can use a broom handle. I said, no more trunk shocks, okay? So just don't spend less on reconditioning, and you can we turn it into a positive, okay? How do you do that, Ingham? How do you do that? Well, they come back in after 2 months. Maybe it's a car that needed brakes, right? Maybe it's a car you should have put brakes on. By the way, if you pull the wheel, guess what? They all need brakes, don't they, Darryl? They all need brakes. Send them out. You know what we started doing? I said, don't pull the wheel. He said, well, how are you going to know? I said, well, drive it across the parking lot and slam on the brake. If it stops, don't need brakes. You got to keep it simple, okay? They're all going to need brakes if you go pulling the wheel and looking at it, okay? So spend less on reconditioning is something that I wish I'd done in the past. Oh, how to turn it into a positive. So they'd bring that car back after 2 months and say, hey, my brakes are scrubbing. I took it to my mechanic. He said, brakes are shot on this. I said, I'm current on my payments. I just had it for 6 weeks. And I'd be like, wow, well, brakes aren't covered under your warranty. You understand that, right? Yeah, you're right. And let me check, make sure you're current. Yeah, you're current. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I've never done this before. Don't tell a soul, okay? I'm going to put brakes on your car for you. But I want you to bring me one customer before the end of the month, okay? Bring me one customer here before the end of the month. I'm going to do this. I know it's not under your warranty. I just want to be a good guy, okay? Now that I turn a negative into a positive, it maybe was a car I should have put brakes on. Maybe not. It stopped going across the parking lot, so we didn't do it. So consider spending less on reconditioning. Again, it's not the way, it's just a way. Don't grow too fast. Spend less on reconditioning. Tom, back to you.
Okie doke. I mentioned earlier I've been coming to these things since 1997. One of the questions that has come up at almost every single conference I've gone to, there will be somebody in the back of the room who will stand up and say, Tom, I create retail installment contracts and I sell them to these companies that buy them at a deep discount, or they charge me an acquisition fee. I want to pass that along to the customer. You just about can't do it. In some states, if you jump through every hoop just correctly and the state law is set up correctly, you can get away with it. But in almost every state I've looked at this issue, you can't pass that acquisition fee along to your customer. Under federal law, what the feds say is that you have to take those acquisition fees, bundle them all together, and treat them like the water bill or the electric bill for your dealership and spread them over your entire inventory. That's what the Fed says you have to do. It's counterintuitive. Dealers don't like it. You give dealers that advice, and they ignore it. And if I were in business, I'd be tempted to ignore it too. But in any event, that's how you have to treat that problem. If you're charging acquisition fees to your customers or passing along that discount, time to stop, go talk to your lawyer, explain to them what you're doing, and ask them if there's a correct way to do it in your state. Chances are the answer is going to be no, but you can at least ask. Hidden finance charges. It's easy to create a hidden finance charge, and this is one of the most common ways to do it. You got a customer and you want to sell him, you don't have quite enough in the deal to satisfy yourself. You want to sell him a vehicle service contract. You want to add that into the deal so you'll make a little extra profit. So you tell the customer, I can't get you financed unless you buy a vehicle service contract. What you've done when you do that is to convert the cost of that vehicle service contract into a finance charge for federal disclosure purposes. You won't be disclosing it, and you'll have a dead bang violation. Your turn.
That's two of them? Okay.
I think so.
My next two.
It says number 4 up there, so that's 2, right?
All right, my next two are going to be, this is one big regret that I probably did wrong in my business over time, and it's called, I just call it upgrade your good customers. Upgrade your good customers. Okay, we were just really strict. I was always that guy that was real disciplined about the ACV. We were going to buy the lowest ACV car that would tote the note. Okay, that's what I was, tote the note dealer. Okay, I was going to get the least expensive car, and it was always a domestic. I could never get Hondas, couldn't get Toyotas. Okay, it was long before Kia and Hyundai came out. So it was always that Pontiac Grand Am and that Buick Century, right? And so that was going to be what I would buy, what I'd got, because it fit my model. I mean, okay, I'd go up a little bit for trucks and minivans, right? That was another little level. But for 4-door cars, this is a limit. I don't give a damn how pretty it is and how shiny and the eyes and all that. Here's the rule. And we just stuck to the program because it worked, okay? But looking back on it, what I didn't do was I should have taken those customers that paid me well and upgrade their car, okay? I should have gone and found the Toyota and the Honda for them or whatever they wanted at that time, okay? See, what would happen is they would pay me for 2 years, 2.5 years, and they ride back to the lot. Guess what was there? Grand Ams and Buick Centuries, okay? If I had do-overs, and I don't spend a whole lot of time looking in the rearview mirror, but I'm just telling you that I would take a good-paying customer and I would upgrade them, okay? And here's how I would do it. I'd say, hey, you've been paying on that Grand Am for 2.5 years. You know, I'm going to go to, I've got 3 buyers, and I've got them out looking for you, that Honda that you wanted or that Toyota that you wanted. And I would make them specifically think I bought it just for them. And now with technology, right, you can send them a picture of it. You don't have to buy it yet. Here's the car, here's this, here's that. Do you like this? I'm only doing this because you paid me so well on this car. But if you got a good paying customer, don't lose them. I lost them. Where'd they go? Drive time, all the, you know the list, okay? I lost those customers because we were so disciplined. When they came back to the lot, I just had the Buick Centuries and Grand Am. So with technology now, you can upgrade those customers with a picture, okay? Here's the car, your balance is down to here, okay? And really start working those customers. When that balance, decide what's right for you. You know, when I got started, Darryl, we wouldn't call them until they owed less than 500, and then a year or two later it was 1,000, then it was 1,500. Now, I don't know where you start calling them now, 2,000, 25, whatever it is, start calling that customer that pays you every week or every 2 weeks or every month and upgrade that customer and get married to them and keep them on the books, okay? If I had do-overs, that would be a biggie that I would do is, and you don't have to put it out on your lot, you don't want people to see it because everybody that came out there would want that shiny Honda or truck or whatever. Just buy it specifically for that customer and make them feel like you did it and send them pictures. And so upgrade your good customers. Don't lose them to Drive Time or whoever. These are 2 kind of little collection tips, right? we forget this is the collection business, not the car business, right? I mean, cars just happen to be the commodity that we use to put the notes on the books. But this has very little to do with cars. This is about collection. So these next are collection tips. I think helped us. I picked this up at a conference here, a 20 group meeting or something. But sort by phone number. All you collectors out there, what you do is the customer comes in and you say, what's your name? Give you your name, you pull it up. And guess what? They've changed phones 3 times, okay? They hadn't changed names. You still got their name. That's not going to help you find them when you need them. You're not going to be able to get in touch with them. So in your collection department, we changed ours and we sorted by phone. So when you come in, call on the phone, I need your number, okay? Because they're constantly changing that phone number. So I need your number. Whoa, bells and whistles should go off. We don't have that number. All right, what's your name? What's the new number? Okay? So sort by, that'll pay for your trip right there. Remember, I know I keep saying I want to pay for your trip. Sort by phone number in your collection department. And all the computers, I think, will do this now. But sort by phone number will pay for your trip. Second thing that'll pay for your trip. Do y'all still take out a sheet of paper and say, we need 6 to 8 references? Here are the references. Fill this out. Here's the phone book. We quit doing that, okay? And we'd go sit beside them and say, oh, get your cell phone out. We're going to need some references. Go to your contact list. Who's Pookie? Who's Tic Tac? Okay? Get the names and the numbers out of their contact list in front of them physically, okay? If you'll do that right there, that collection tip right there will pay for the trip. Don't take their words for it. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just want to mention about that phone number trip.
Okay.
You mentioned that last conference and we implemented that. It was great. So it paid for the last trip.
Wow. You need something new. All right. I'll come up with something else for you then. He thought it paid for his last trip, okay, sorting by phone number. I got to come up with some new material for this guy here. Get the numbers out of their contact list. Don't hand them a piece of paper and say, come back with these 6 to 8 references, because you're going to get grandparents that died 8 years ago and all that. Just pull out your contacts. Let's go through them. Don't they have a free favorites? Go to their favorites, on their contacts and say, who was this? Who was this? Who was this? That's how you get them. Tom, that's my 2.
Okay,
back to you.
My turn again. Yep. We kept seeing this practice where people, a dealership would finance a repair for a customer. What does a rebuilt transmission cost, Ingram? $1,200?
$1,200.
No. So the customer blows a transmission, so he comes back to you and he says, I can't drive it unless it has a good transmission. So what do? If you got a transmission shop, if you got a mechanic shop, you might repair it yourself, or you might send him down the street to the transmission store and have one put in. Then what you do, what I hear dealers say is, we put it on the end of the note, quote unquote, right? Put it on the end of the note. Well, that's what you do. That's how you might describe it internally, to describe what you're doing in your own paperwork. But when you go through the legalities of what you did was either sell the customer a repair that you did in your back office. You sold him $1,200 worth of services on credit, right? Did you make truth in lending disclosures when you sold him that $1,200? Nope. What's the rate you're going to charge? Who knows? You haven't documented that transaction correctly. Now, if you send him down the street to the AMCO place and you paid the AMCO folks $1,200, you've advanced $1,200 to the customer. Now you haven't engaged in a credit sale. What you've done is given a loan to the customer. And again, you're the lender and you got to make truth in lending disclosures and you got to document that transaction correctly. I don't think I've ever seen a dealer that does this stuff correctly. But I guarantee you the enforcement folks are interested in it. If you are financing repairs for your customers, sit down with your lawyer, figure out how to do it, figure out how to document it, make sure you're doing it correctly. Now, starter interrupt devices and GPS devices. First time I ran into this, you remember Mel Farr? Mel Farr was dealership in Detroit. Yeah, Mel Farr was using starter interrupt devices, and he got himself hauled into court by a buyer who claimed that the starter interrupt device had stopped her car on a bridge or something. She was endangered. The case ended up getting thrown out, but I read through the newspaper report of that case, and I said, aha, this is going to be interesting. If dealers start using these things, this is going to be a nightmare of litigation. And about a year later, I started representing one of the earliest people in the business, and then later ended up having 3 or 4 more starter interrupt device, GPS device clients come in. We do that work all the time now. But when they first started using them, there were a bunch of dealers who didn't feel the need to tell the customer that the devices had been installed. And we thought that was sort of a bad idea. And over time, we put together a bunch of best practices. One of the best practices was it's a real bad idea to try to charge the customer for a device that you're using for collections. That is a finance charge if you do that. So there are all kinds of do's and don'ts. We got all kinds of, if you're interested in this area, and in any of the other areas I've talked about today, by the way, just jot me a note and or send me an email, and I'll send you articles on these various topics. But there are best practices in this area as well. And that's number 6 for me,
Okay,
Sport.
thanks, Tom. Next on my list, I've got join a 20 group. Okay, joining a 20 group is one of the best things I ever did to help my business. In case you don't know what a 20 group is, it's 20 buy here, pay here, or subprime dealers that don't compete with each other, so they're in different markets from all over the country, and you get together and you share numbers. You share numbers, you share ideas, you share everything. It's like having a board of directors. It really is awesome. It's like this, except more intimate, more intense, and it's, 2 full days normally of it, but consider joining a 20 group. Just put that down just because it really helped me so much, and I know a lot of buy here, pay here dealers are independent guys. They're like, what do you mean? I'm not going to tell them how many I sell and how much I gross and how much I pay myself and all that. But you need to get beyond that, and because the only way performance is improved is you got to measure it. So wherever performance is measured, performance is improved. So consider joining a 20 group. Consistently look for cheaper money. Okay, I talked to so many people here, and their money's costing them, 15%, 12%, 18%, whatever. Consistently look for cheaper money, okay? Just because it's out there and it's available, and you may not be at that level, but I want you to still go talk to the people that loan that kind of money and say, I'm going to come see you in 2 years. Here's where I am. Here's where I'm going. And keep my card because I'm going to be back here in 2 years, and I'm going to be at this level. And then I want some of that money, okay? And so they all, I hear some of the big boys not interested unless you want $5 million. Tell them, I'm at $2.5 million, but we're going to 5, okay? And even if you don't qualify right now, you're a small dealer, got $600,000 book, go see the guys and say, listen, I want to grow it. I'm with such and such. I'm paying 14% interest, I'm going to get this thing to $2.5 million, and I'm going to come see you. I hear what you're saying about 5, but as soon as I get you cheaper money, I'll take us from 2.5 to 5, okay? Still don't think you're too small to go talk to the Texas Capitals of the world and whoever the low-cost lenders are, okay? Be in constant pursuit for cheaper money is something I encourage everybody to do. Even if you don't think you're there yet, you'll get there, okay? Every time business gets tough, we look at reducing expenses. The best way I've ever reduced expenses is personnel. It's 2 things. It's personnel or it's advertising, right? That's where your money is, personnel or advertising. There's only so much you can cut out of floor plan and interest expense.
Well, stiffing me on your legal fees works pretty well, too.
Yeah, that's right. I tell people I have the kind of attorney you hope the other fella has. Anyhow, here's how I've been real successful in reducing my head count, okay? Take 3 jobs, 3 positions, and turn them into 2. Not complicated, is it? But it works, okay? Take 3 jobs, turn it into 2. You may not be able to do it with 2 of those 3 that are there, but take the positions. Take 3 positions and turn it into 2 positions. See, and I promise you, it works better than anything that I have ever done. I was in the half of the class that made the top half possible, okay? I was never really that smart, but you don't have to be that smart to take 3 jobs and turn them into 2. So my wife and I are new empty nesters, so we had 3 kids, and the youngest just graduated NC State, and so what you do when you get old like this, you play Jeopardy. So we play Jeopardy now, and we compete against each other. And she'll get like 3 answers in a row, and she'll like, honey, are you Are you watching this? Are you paying attention? And I'm like, baby, when you were learning all this stuff, I was standing out in the hallway. I mean, I spent all my elementary school years standing in the hall. I remember that, so I just wasn't going to be that smart. Join a 20 group, consistently look for cheaper money, take 3 jobs, turn them into 2. I got to say, and I really like, as it relates to the 3 jobs, turn them into 2. Because business is so competitive now, we're in a new environment. What should be done eventually must now be done immediately. I know y'all all got that person, and you're like, he's just not gonna make it. But this just ain't for her. You know, I know you've got that person, okay? I want you to think about that saying. I want you to write it down. What should be done eventually must be done immediately, okay, in this environment. And people come up and say, I really want to go. I want to go back from this conference. I want to go back and change something. I want to go back and get everybody fired up. I said, are you serious? Yeah, I'm serious. I said, are you committed? Yeah, I'm committed. What do? I said, go back and fire somebody. Go back and fire somebody's ass as soon as you walk in the door. Okay? Nothing will change your business any faster than that. I see the lawyer looking at me. Okay, be safe. Make it a white male. Pick out a white male. Pick out a white male. Fire his ass. Nothing will change your business faster. Okay? What's everybody else do? What's everybody else do when you let go of the bad?
Work harder.
Yeah, right? Okay? If you get a cancer on your arm, what do they do to it? Cut it out, right? All right? You'll lose the respect of your best people if you don't deal with your worst people. And that's really the scary part. That's the danger. You lose the respect of your best people if you don't confront the underperformers and the weak ones. You want to really change? Try that when you get home. Don't tell them Ingram said it, though.
Okay.
All right, Tom, back to you.
Ingram, listen up now. We got 10 minutes.
Okay.
Got 10 minutes, okay?
Good, yeah. We're good.
So calm down.
Yeah, there'll be time for Q&A at the end, too. So,
The next 2 things I'm going to cover real quickly. The same general idea, both of them. We got convenience fees. If you charging your customer to use a credit card to make a payment, that's what we call a convenience fee. There's a bunch of different ways to do it. If you're doing that, make sure you've gotten legal advice about whether you can do it and how you do it. Same thing with NSF charges. You may think you've got a state law that says you can charge a $25 NSF fee. That may or may not apply. It could be that under your state's Retail Installment Sales Act, special rules apply, and you need to know which rules apply. You also need to know what appears in your contract. Does your contract give you the right against the customer to charge convenience fees and NSF charges? You got to read through the contract, figure out what's there. Don't just assume you can automatically get away with charging those things.
I've got review your documents every 3 years. Okay, Tom would probably try to talk you into doing it every year, every 2 years.
15 minutes.
It costs money, okay? So put on your list from Ingram, get your documents reviewed every 3 years, okay? I've heard some horror stories over the last 20 years of people wanting to sell their portfolio, wanting to exit the business or whatnot, and their paperwork, their I's aren't dotted, their T's aren't crossed. And we're not talking about making it worth only 78 cents instead of 84 cents, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about I've seen it worthless, okay? The paper was worthless just because it wasn't documented properly for that state, or they didn't do something right, or they did something that was illegal or something. So, I mean, we're in the business for this portfolio, okay? Get your documents reviewed every 3 years by somebody that knows what the heck they're doing, okay? What I would do is I would get a FedEx box, and I would go into the collections department, and I would pull 5 deal jackets, okay? I'm not going to tell my collection manager, hey, bring me 5 deal jackets, because she's going to scrub them and clean them and then bring them in there. You know, I would go in there and pull 5 deal jackets, put them in a FedEx box, and I'd send them to Tom. I said, and it was amazing, some of the stuff that he found over the years. And we think we're doing it all right. Heck, I'm going to Las Vegas every year and learning all this stuff. Surely my documents are in order, but it was scary that things were out of order. So as one of my, Tom, you have any comment on that, about getting those reviewed? Okay, thank you. Also, I believe in getting your portfolio appraised every couple of years. Okay, get your portfolio appraised every couple of years. But anyway, I'm not going to sell. I'm not interested in selling. That's not what I'm talking about. Get it appraised every couple of years so you know and you can document, your discount. All right? You want to be able to document your discount. Next, I want to say a word about compliance and how I handled compliance, okay? Because, with Trump in office, it has kind of toned down just a little bit, all this compliance stuff, but it hadn't gone away. And what's not going to go away are the bad actors, and it shouldn't go away, right? Okay, it's going to clean up a lot of things that shouldn't have been happening in the first place. But I see so many people scared about compliance because you come to these things, they say, well, you got to have a compliance officer, and you got to have a CMS, a compliance management system, and you got to have a privacy officer, you got to have red flags, and it starts. They're like people turn around and look at me and say, Ingram, I go to the auction and buy cars. My wife runs the office. My son's out back cleaning them. Who the hell is going to be the compliance officer? I don't understand what you're talking about. How this works? Okay, here's what I want you to do. I want you to write in your notes. Get on the road to compliance. Okay, get on the road. Do something. Okay. In that case I gave you, what I would do would be appoint my wife as the compliance officer, okay? And I would post it up there that she's the compliance officer. I'd post it in the office, and I'd make people sign that they understand that my wife is the compliance officer. Sign right here and put it in the deal jackets, okay? You're never going to be 100% compliant. We can't be. The CFPB, as crazy as they are, they did say your compliance management system depended on the size and scope of your operation.
Now, Ingram, we're in booth 232, folks. To get a start, come around, we'll give you a compliance book. As long as they last, we'll give you a compliance book. That's booth number 232.
Booth 232, Hudson Cook, okay? Go see them, but don't get so stressed about compliance. Get on the road to compliance. Do something, okay? Do more than the dealer across the street's doing, okay? Appoint a compliance director. You know what I do? I'd take this agenda you got in front of you. I'd take my ticket that I spent $700 with American Airlines and my hotel bill, and I'd make a copy of that, and I'd take the agenda here, anything on compliance in there, and I'd staple it all together, and I would drop it in a file. And I'd say, not only is my wife the compliance officer, it's posted right there on the wall, but I want you to look at what I spent training her. Okay? Look at this. I flew her out to Las Vegas. We attended this seminar. Here's the agenda from it. That's a start, right? You're getting on the road to compliance, okay? So that's my last one. Tom, back to you.
Okay, a couple of real quick ones, and then we're going to try to leave a little bit of time for questions.
Okay.
This is one we've seen enforcement action on very recently. A particular finance company was charging the customer fees to reclaim his own personal property left in the vehicle. Depending on what the state law looks like, you can't get away with that in an awful lot of states. Before you do it, make sure you know what the rules are, make sure you know what you can and can't do, and read your contract. See what your contract has to say about this, your retail installment contract. Finally, I'm not going to use this one. I was going to talk a little bit about dual language materials, but there's been a very recent set of enforcement actions, and the topic was application fraud. Who sells contracts to finance companies? How many of you do? Everybody here, buy here, pay here? Completely buy here, pay here? Okay. Well, this is the wrong crowd for that. I'm sorry. Let me go back to the...
No, they sell them to them. They just don't want to raise their hand. I see some.
Well, the dual language requirement typically is Spanish language. There aren't requirements in many jurisdictions that require you to have documents or parts of documents in Spanish or in some other language, but there are a few. So make sure, especially if you're advertising in one language and contracting in another, make sure you know what the rules are. Make sure you've talked with your lawyer. Questions?
Yeah, we're going to go to questions, and I see a lot of older people in the audience, and I know it's tough. All this change we're going through is tough, but I tell the older guys that don't want to change because I didn't want to change more than anybody because I was successful doing what we're doing. And I heard this phrase one time. They said, Ingram, if you think you hate change, you're going to hate irrelevance even more. And I was like, what? They said, if you think you don't like change, you wait till you try irrelevance. That's a tough word for a Monroe boy, but that was out in the hallway, all elementary school. But I don't want to be irrelevant, okay? But we're going to be if we don't continue and commit to changing. Look what Uber did, right? I believe that they disrupted, right? I believe we got to you either got to disrupt or you're going to get disrupted. Okay? Things are going to constantly change. Just be open to change regardless of your age, because that's it's not a luxury anymore. It's a necessity. Change is a necessity, not a luxury. All right, let's take questions for Tom or Ingram or anybody else in the audience.
Before we take the first one,
sure.
let me tell you, these slides are on the NIADA site. So go ahead. Question where? Yes, sir.
I come from the heavy truck industry, and a lot of the lease purchase trucks, when they're purchased out, they come with escrow accounts. Every week they put a little bit of money into a service contract for repairs. What are the regulations that vary with buy or pay here's compared to a lease purchase for?
The business you've been in is essentially an unregulated business. It's a business-to-business type operation. Yes. And the consumer credit laws and the consumer protection laws tend not to apply to those. The CFPB has no jurisdiction there. The Federal Trade Commission has jurisdiction, but they won't be exercising it much in that area of just general contract terms. You've just wandered into an area that's much more tightly regulated with rules everywhere you look.
Thank you.
Okay, got one here on the third row. Y'all, every time I ask my lawyer something, it's $600. Y'all got a chance to ask a lawyer something for nothing.
$650, right, Ingram.
This is about concerning guaranteed credit approval advertising.
Guaranteed credit what?
Like guaranteed approval or guaranteed credit
everybody
approval,
rides.
advertising it in an ad, say online. Are these regulated by state or federal?
Yes, both.
Okay.
The Federal Trade Commission will look at any advertising you're doing. If you're buy here, pay here, strictly buy here, pay here, the CFPB will look at it. Your state AGs will look at it, and that's one that I think it's fair to say they all know about that issue. And if you're doing it, you're running a real risk.
What about like credit acceptance has it on their sign? All credit acceptance dealers says guaranteed credit approval on the sign.
Yeah, I understand. I can't speak to any individual operation and what it's doing, but I can tell you that it's a lightning rod.
Okay.
Just, what we did, I got creative. Y'all can write this down. You can steal it if you want to, but he said, I heard Tom say so many times, you can't use everybody rides. You can't use nobody turned down. You can't use 100% approval rating. So I said, there's got to be a way to think through this. And I just thought, had me another Red Bull, and I said, here's our slogan. We finance people a whole lot worse than you. And so, it says it all, right? So, question. Any questions? Yes, sir. Excuse me, sir.
You used the example of not reconning as much and making it a positive when the customer comes back after the sale. However, is there anything in your mind that you can control that person, to bring the vehicle back to you instead of, in today's digital age where everybody has a larger mouthpiece than they ever had, that customer says, okay, well, I'll go to AMCO and spend $900 putting brakes on this car, and then I'm going to go right home and say, hey, Ingram sold me this car with $900 worth of bad brakes. Don't go there. That's another concern that I have anyway.
That's a case-by-case deal. My customers always came back to me because they didn't have $900 to go to AMCO, but I see what you're saying, and I hear it loud and clear. Another thing that we did that worked really great over the years is we had these checks, these blank checks. They looked like a check. They were a little bit larger than a normal check. And customer come in and have a problem. I don't know, say it's air conditioner, right? And the air conditioner's not blowing cold, but it's November, and we're in the Carolinas. So I'm like, you know what? I tell you what I'm going to do. You make those payments on, air conditioner's not coming under your warranty, right? It's not part of the powertrain, right? Okay, so what I'm going to do is you make these payments. You stay good on this until June 1st. You come back in, and I'm going to pay for this air conditioner. And I'd put it in writing, and I'd hand it to them and say, put this in your glove compartment. When you come back in, we're going to fix that air. We're going to do it in June. Well, guess what? In June, you know how they paid the last 7 months, right? You know a whole lot more about that customer than you did at that time. And I call it just kicking the can down the road. Just kick it down the road. We'll fix that, We'll fix that, when it becomes critical.
Ingram,
yep.
we're out of time. They're going to put the hook on us. You want to tell the folks how they can find us in the exhibit hall, because we'll both be there.
Yeah, give them your number again. I'll be everywhere in the exhibit hall tonight, mainly at the bar. So you can find me in there where the free drinks are. But we do want y'all to rate session here, I think you can go on the mobile app and rate it. Somehow I'm not real high tech, but Tom and I would really appreciate, your thoughts and feedback on how we can improve. The next session starts in 15 minutes. Tom and I will be out in the hallway because I know there's still a whole lot more questions that we didn't get to, but I would like to know if y'all would just rate me on a scale of 9 to 10 and let me know exactly how I did. So thanks, everybody, and I'll see you in the exhibit hall tonight.